morning, everybody. Thank you very much again for coming down here to Canada Life Center. I know I've said this before, but this is indeed a very special day for the Winnipeg Jets Hockey Club and True North Sports and Entertainment. Many people think back to the NHL Winnipeg Jets history, and they circle the date of June 10th, 1981, as the day the fortunes of this hockey team turned around in the National Hockey League. Of course, that was the day the franchise drafted a center by the name of Dale Hawerchuk. It was also the day they drafted a winger by the name of Scott Arniel in the first pick of the second round, and as a result, his playing career and his connections to the city of Winnipeg began. Fast forward 33 years, and today is a new chapter in not only his own history, but that of the team and our organization. So without further ado, I'd like to call upon the Executive Vice President and General Manager of the Winnipeg Jets, Mr. Kevin Cheveldayoff, to introduce the next head coach in the history of the organization.
Thanks very much, Scott. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming here today. I knew very quickly that we'd made the right choice 2 years ago to persuade Scott to join our staff as associate coach. Opening night, lots of expectations of getting things off to a good start with a new foundation that was being put in place by Bones, and unfortunately he took ill with COVID. I remember walking into the assistant coach's office, and I looked at Arnie and I said, "You got this." Well, he was way ahead of me already. He looked at me and he said, "This is how it's going to unfold." He was clearly in charge. A large part of coaching in today's game is about communication and relationships, and Arnie has developed those skills throughout the various experiences with other head coaches and players that he's been developing them, and he's been developing them here for the last 2 years as well. I'm very excited to introduce to you Scott Arniel, the new head coach of the Winnipeg Jets.
Thanks, Chevy. First of all, I'm a little surprised. I thought maybe Rick would be in the audience now that he's working with the media. So. This is an extremely special day for me. I'm so excited for this honor to become the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. I want to thank Mark Chipman, David Thompson, Chevy, Zinger, Larry, for believing in me, having the belief, that I can get the job done. I want to, thank the Jets organization, all the training staff who I've got to know over the last couple of years. There's a lot of people in the office that I go back to my Moose days that are still here, but the job that they do day in and day out to be a part of this organization is special. I want a special thank you and recognition to my wife Leah, who's here today, my kids Brendan and Stephanie. Just the fact that they've been through this journey with me for a long time, both as a player and as a coach, and been the backbone and the support for me. I do have to have a shout out to my mom in Kingston. She'll soon be 90. She's watching this today with my brothers and sisters there. She just wishes that we'd have more Winnipeg Jet games on in Kingston instead of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, but to all of them, to everyone, I really appreciate all the support, and thank you so much. Like as Chevy and Brownie said, my journey, it's come full circle. Going back to 1981 when I was an 18-year-old kid, looking to pursue my NHL dream as a hockey player. A lot of firsts have happened here. Like I said, I met my wife here. My kids were raised here. I got to obviously play my first professional games here. I got to retire here at the end of my career as well with the Moose. But it also was the start of my coaching career, and it was where I got to cut my teeth here. It was 23 years ago that, I really got into this other part of hockey. People always ask me, why am I still doing it? It's just the next best thing to being a player. It's my dream. I've loved it. I've done it my whole life, and hockey is a big part of me. And to be here today, to be the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, is extremely special to me. For me, this is a second opportunity to be a head coach, and 12 years ago, it didn't work for me in Columbus, and I first admit a lot of things I didn't do a lot of things well. There's a lot of things that I've learned, but the best part of these last 12 years is I've been able to rebrand myself. I've been able to go out and work with some fantastic people, some great coaches, some great management teams, work with some tremendous players, and it's helped me to kind of reshape how I want to coach and how I want to do things. It's all part of that next step. I got a chance over the last 2 years, obviously some unfortunate situations with Rick and Judy, but it also helped me to build confidence in myself and what I can do as a coach, and being a part of this organization and working with this group that's here. I think that, moving forward, what's gone on here the last 2 years, when we first came in as a coaching staff, there was a lot of work to be done, and I'm very proud of what the staff, of what we've done as a group. We've had to change the culture. We had to work on the leadership. We had to raise the standards here with our hockey club, and I got to give an awful lot of credit to obviously the coaches, but also to the players. We have made some changes, management as well. What we did this year was special. 2 years ago, we started to build the foundation of how we wanted to look, how we wanted to play, how do we want to go about our daily business, and this year a lot of it came to the forefront. We had 52 wins, 110 points, which is obviously a great accomplishment in this league, but it's also something that we need to strive for every year. It's something that we want to become an elite team always. We want to be those teams that we're not just one and done. And I think that moving forward, some of our players mentioned it about that being 5 to 10% better, and I think that's all of us. That's a coaching staff, that's management, that's everyone doing a little bit more. And we know, because when we got to the playoffs the last 2 years, they did not go the way we wanted. There's some things that we obviously have to improve on. But at the same time, we've made some great strides here in the last 2 years, and I really believe that some best days are ahead of us. We're still got lots of positive things to happen moving forward. To the fans, that support us, it's so cool on the road when we go and that national anthem gets played and you hear the True North yelled out. You can feel the support all over the country, but here in Manitoba and Winnipeg, for me, it's gone, like I said, back to 1981, and it is special, and there's nothing more that I would love to see than for us as a province, a city, as a team to have success here. In my coaching career, this is probably the greatest personal chapter for me, to become the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. But ultimately, what I've been chasing my whole life is the Stanley Cup, and I think that to become here to this hockey team, which I feel is a real strong organization, a real strong group, that we can continue to move forward to achieving that goal, ultimately for everybody, for all of us to share in that. In closing, I am just truly honored for this opportunity. It has been unbelievable, the process the last few years, meeting with Chevy, with the staff, just given a chance to show what I can do as a head coach, and I'm real appreciative of that.
Okay, everybody, we will take, we do have a wireless mic, I believe, that's out there. Kenny's got it. For those of you that don't have the mic right now, please indicate, and we'll get you the microphone. So this time we can all hear your questions. No problem. We'll take a few questions this way. Both Scott and Kevin will be available for scrums following on the one-on-one. And once the questions are finished from the floor and before we get to the scrums, we'll do a photo opportunity for the photogs that are in attendance. We'll work with you to get the right photo opportunity. So, Kenny, go ahead with the first question.
Scott, you talked about rebranding yourself. What's the most valuable lesson you will take into the second opportunity based on what you learned in those years after Columbus? Yeah,
I think there's a few. I think I went into Columbus a young, green coach. You think maybe you have all the answers, but I think in this last 12 years, I've had a chance to work with some great people and learn what it takes to win in this league. It's a hard league. I think that, there's, whether it's, relationships with players, how I work with management, whether it's how I deal with the media. Those are all things that I've been able to be around people that have done it. I've had a chance to do it myself, just to continue to build on that. If you go to the system style of things, the style of play, those are all things that have just gradually every year I'm a big student of the game, and I love to watch. I'm still watching, every game that's being played, and I think that that's just something for me that, I want to continue to build on.
And Kevin, for you, you talked about the thorough process. What can you tell us about how many people you spoke to and what pushed Scott to the top of the pile here?
So the process for us obviously was a little bit different, I think, this time around. 2 years ago when we were looking to make a change, we kind of cast a little bit of a wider net and had many interviews. I had the benefit of reaching out and talking to a few of those guys, even again in this point in time. We formally interviewed 3 people, Scott and 2 others. But the process itself was a different one this time. It wasn't like we were looking to reinvent this team. We weren't looking to take it from one kind of a coach to another. We were looking for to know that the foundation that we had in place was going to get continued to be built upon. The interview process for me really started in the exit interviews, I think, this year with the players and the comments and the tone. Some players were very open about who they would like to take over in case Bones did decide to go in a different direction. So again, those things were very helpful and very thing. But for me, obviously the outside candidates, it takes a little while for both sides to get to know each other. But the most in-depth interview I think that we had in this process was with Scott. We sat almost for an entire day talking about just everything. It was just about the evolution of the team, the evolution of himself. He showed a lot of vulnerability and opened up a lot about the Columbus experience and just where he's grown, who's been most influential. But the most important part was of that process was that he came in with a plan for almost every single player. And it was clear right then and there that Arnie was not only thoughtful about the X's and O's, and about the organization, but he had a chance to be a guy that could exact some change in some of these players because he's been with them, he's grown, he's built that relationship, he's had hard conversations with them, he's over 25 games over the period of 2 years, he's led them, and again, it was that confidence and that I think really helped us, and I think hopefully helped him, understand where it was. Arnie interviewed very well 2 years ago, and it was a very tough conversation, for us to have at that point in time when we didn't, make him, the head coach at that point. But I felt our team needed a little bit more of a experienced, guided hand in Bones. But it was a real important that we had, Arnie by his side at that time because, we knew at some point in time, obviously, that Bones' career was going to take a different direction. But that being said, there was never anything promised to Scott, and he's sitting here today because he's earned this opportunity.
This question is for Scott. Chevy just talked about all of the plans that you had, and when I talk to fans, they sort of, the big curiosity is what's going to change and what's going to stay the same, because status quo involves 52 wins, 110 points, a Jennings Trophy. It also involves first-round exits, like you said. So what are the core elements of the team's identity, whether it's 5-on-5, whether it's special teams you want to keep, and what are the ones you need to transform?
Yeah, I think that, when I sit back and you think about what are the next steps. For me, we've built first of all, if you go to sort of our style of play, we've got something that our players are believing in. They realize, excuse me, how we play right now, 5-on-5 is something that'll garner success. We have players that, that took a lot of, criticism over the last couple of years who have really stepped up. And I just look at like Mark Scheifele and KC who really bought into how we're playing, and they realize now that we're not cutting away anything from their offense, and they are buying into how we play without the puck. And I know I've said it often about how hard we have to work to get the puck back from people, and that isn't just in our end of the rink. And everybody did a great job over the last 2 years of getting on board on that. And so that part of it, I do have some ideas, thoughts, maybe won't share them today, but when it comes to some offensive things, some forechecks, whatever it might be, those are some things when I get obviously a coaching staff, we'll go over that this summer. we'll watch some of what's going on with some of the top teams right now and kind of see, we can kind of pick and sort of look at things that maybe might be something that you want to throw into your style of play. Specialty teams for me is a huge thing. I'll start with the penalty kill. It was for me, 2 years ago coming in here, we had great success. We took a group that was near the bottom and brought it up. Took a big step back, and I'll take a lot of the responsibility for that. But that's an area for me that it's as much as at times PK changes around the league, power plays change, and you can see it's going on right now in the playoffs, where Carolina was #1 in the league, and they gave up 4 goals one night. Last night again, Rangers were doing so good, and Florida gets 2. It's just it's a thing that you have to stay on top of, and I do believe that I'm going to have to do some digging, and there's changes that you have to make. You can't stay still. You got to move forward. Our power play as well. It has to get better. These things have to be a constant where the top teams, like I mentioned earlier, about our 52 wins and being an elite team, those top teams all have real good specialty teams, and it helps you win games when you're not on all the time, and it helps you win games in December or January, and so that's an area for me that I'm going to take a lot of pride in, and I'm going to make sure that I'm also involved in, and really look into dive deep into that area.
And sort of following up on that, in the heat of following the Colorado loss, there was sort of this sense that, okay, they had figured some things out. They had tweaked their forecheck. There had been some data-informed reason why they had changed, and they had spoken to that in media and things to that effect. As you guys push forward, is the improvements when you talk about offensively or countering that, can that come from a data deep dive? Is that from video? How do you close that gap? Because it really did seem like there had been one.
Yeah, I actually talked to their coaches after our series, and they kind of did a self-check after Dallas beat them, we beat them, and then they lost to Vegas right near the end of the year. They felt there were 3 big teams that they weren't at, and so they did make some changes. But at the end of the day, for me, when it comes to those things, I came from Washington prior to this, and there was a big push on the analytics, and analytics is really starting to go here in the last 5 or 6 years, and it really is. And I know that you had mentioned about Colorado. It is part of it, and it is something that that I like to look at. I think it's something that as an organization we have to all be together on. It's something that how you present it to the players. Obviously, if you're going to go down that road, you got to be careful. Because they have their own analytics and they can find information as well. You can make somebody look really good or something really, really bad in sort of all the same kind of areas. So it is something that I'd like to put forward. I think as an organization, we've talked about having a summit this summer, getting on board as an organization in that area and moving that a little bit forward. We do have players that are interested in it, so it'll be something that we'll look to. Then when it comes to, it'll be a lot of getting together with a staff and then putting those things, how we want to go about how we need to play. We also played against a Colorado team that had won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. They were hardened. They knew what it took, and then they lost to Seattle the next year. That team that we ran into had some experience. They had a couple of elite players that played an elite game or elite series, and that's the area we're striving to get to. They've got a cup. They've just recently. So we've got a tough division. Obviously the West is real tough. We got to eliminate 8 teams every year just to give ourselves a chance to play in those Stanley Cup playoffs. So there's lots of things we need to build on this summer.
Scott, you said you've been watching the playoffs so far. What's the missing piece then right now that'll merge between your team and these teams that are fighting for a cup right now?
Well, it's it's interesting. I've talked to a bunch of the players, heard a lot from a lot of guys, just especially in this last weekend. But I talked to a bunch last week, and their comments about the compete, how hard these guys are battling and what guys are doing. Man, I wish I could have. Done this a little bit more or that a little bit more. It's like I said earlier, it's that 5 to 10% better. It's going to take it in the regular season, but it's also going to take it. We're going to have to go that way in the playoffs. It's coaches pushing players. It's players pushing players. It's just kind of that mindset. It's every player talks about it after you win. It's that commitment that it goes to another level. I think that in NHL right now there's 3 seasons. It's that the start of training camp to the All-Star break. It's kind of all the teams are kind of jockeying. Maybe some young teams are showing some improvement. Maybe there might be some teams trying to get in. But then the second half is really when the games change. The veterans teams or the top teams really start to exude their game and take it to another level. And then the playoffs is another whole season. And I think that's the step for us that we are missing. And that's part of what, hopefully over the course of the season, through my coaching, our coaching, through what we do every day, whether it's practice or games, that builds towards that product that or that style of play that we have to play in the playoffs.
You see a team like Dallas, they're winning with younger guys, Wyatt Johnston, the Logan Stankovens, and that. What's your take on young players? What's your view on that? I mean, this team's got Cole, it's got Villy in the system, Brad Lambert. What's your
I think they're
philosophy on
vital.
those?
I think they're vital. Obviously, in this day and age with salary cap, you're going to have your you're going to have your elite players that you only have so much pie to spread around, and at the end of the day, you need your young guys to step in and give and help you. They need to help you both with salary cap, but they also have to help you. You look at those two young kids in Dallas; they're making a big impact for that team. But the other side of it as well, those players have to be ready. You can't just throw young guys into situations and hope that they'd have success. We want these guys to be Winnipeg Jets for years. We don't want it just to be one and done or 1 or 2 years and they're out. It's important that their development, they get the full development, and that. When it's their time to play here, that that they've earned that opportunity and they have success when they get here.
This one's for Kevin. Whether it is accurate, whether it's fair or not, there is the perception out there that by making the choice of Scott, that it's the safe decision. Can you maybe react to that a little bit in terms of that process and is there reason for people to believe that is the case?
Well, again, I think everyone's going to have their own perceptions, but the reality is you're looking to build upon something that a foundation has been laid, and again, there's lots of different points that Scott has brought up, but the reality is that sometimes the best options are within. You don't always have to go out and look outside an organization. What we did 2 years ago was make sure that we had one of the best people outside of head coaching in the National Hockey League as part of our staff, and I think if we don't make that choice or we don't have that opportunity, we probably don't have the success that we had last year in the Jennings and the 52 wins. Again, there's lots of things that go into a decision for a coach, but handling people and demonstrating that under duress and fire, you can do it. Not a lot of head coaches, or not a lot of guys that aren't head coaches in the National Hockey League, get that opportunity. So, for us, we're looking for someone that can hold the players accountable. We're looking for someone, that can relate to, the players. We're looking for someone to build upon it. I can go on and on. All the signs point to Scott, when there. But again, if the status quo of 52 wins is there, I'll be pretty darn happy.
And congratulations, by the way, Scott, on the appointment. When it gets mentioned, the 5 to 10% better, we heard about that in the exit meetings. Is the 5 to 10% also, whether it's more demanding on your part or more demanding of the players upon themselves? Is that part of the equation as well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that, I've got to make sure that I hold everybody accountable and that everybody's, doing what they need to do for us to have success. I think that's one of the areas for me is, one of my very early conversations with players is going to be what expectations are, what we, me talking to them, getting a feel for how they think they're going to help the Winnipeg Jets have success. And then it's going out and making sure that player does that on a nightly basis. But the other side, and it's what we kind of talked about from day one 2 years ago when we've kind of keep, pushing this, is that, the teams are, really good teams are led by real good leadership and real good dressing rooms. And we, like I said earlier, we've improved that area. We have still some work to do, but at the end of the day, them pushing each other is a big part of this. And, I know that I've talked to, just in the last couple of days, I talked to all the captains, a bunch of the leaders, and it's amazing how all of those guys take responsibility for, what happened on, in the playoffs and what, obviously also taking the credit also for what happened during the regular season. But it's them pushing each other harder as well. I mean, we're there to help steer the ship and making sure that those things are happening, but they also have to continue to drive each other.
Kevin, obviously with Scott becoming the head coach, there's a associate or assistant coach vacancy. What are the plans to fill that role, and will you guys work collaboratively to kind of fill that position?
So on that note, just to kind of give a little bit more of a staff update here as well, over the weekend I had a chance to speak with Brad Lauer, and you know, we chatted about, you know, the change of roles and the change of the situation here, and we came to a mutual agreement that you know, we were going to part ways, and so we wish Brad all the best. He's you know, put you know, 2 hard years of his career into working here, but one thing that, you know, when we talked about going through the process here with Scott was that you know, we were looking to add some outside influence on both the assistant coaches. Whether it'll be an associate or assistant, you know, those are things that, you know, we'll kind of wait to see how some things unfold. I know Scott's got some distinct plans of how he wants to, you know, move things forward, but I definitely wanted to thank Brad for his time here.
Is there an update for the timeline as to when we get with the assistant coach search, or?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, my phone has been buzzing like crazy here since Friday. I really has. There's certainly it's been a tremendous amount of turnover in the league in the last year and the last 2 years. So there are a lot of people that you know, have contacted me. You know, we'll work hard this week to put a staff together. There's other teams that are trying to do the same thing. So, you know, Marty Johnson and Wade Flaherty will be back, and then we'll just, you know, we'll build off of that. Like I said, I'll you know, start the process probably as soon as I get out of here and start talking to some people. Like I said, there's lots of interest, and I think people recognize that we have a really good situation here and a real good hockey club.
Scott, congratulations. Just continuing on that trend, will there be something specific you're looking for? You mentioned special teams. Will you be looking for someone that maybe has a background in whether it's power play, penalty kill, and what about the value of maybe experience? There's obviously a lot of experienced guys out there. Yeah. Some we've heard have interviewed for head coaching jobs and haven't got it. Obviously with Rick moving on, you've lost a lot of experience kind of within that room.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I'm going to be wide open for everything. You know, there's experiences, you know, certainly important that, you know, that I'm going to need somebody to run the power play, obviously somebody to pick up the defense and probably the penalty kill. But I'm open to everything. I've got some really interesting text message emails from some young coaches, some guys that I've heard about. I've gotten names from management. I've got some names from some other coaches that are recommending people as well. So I think that I'm not going to be closed-minded on any of that. I want to talk to all these guys. I want to kind of see who's out there and, you know, what they bring to the table, and whether that's young or experienced, I'm gonna look at it all.
And then just to follow up on something you mentioned earlier, I think you called it a summer summit. Can you just give us a little more details on what that plan involves? This is regarding analytics and kind of a deeper dive, I guess, into the organizational use of them. Yeah,
well, we had talked about it last week. Excuse me. It's such a big part of the game, and you know, how you can use it. But the biggest thing for analytics for me is get ahead of the curve. It's easy to grab your analytics after when things are bad and saying this is, well, you're terrible in this area, you're terrible in that. For us, it's to find some of those things. It's to kind of find the areas, obviously, that you're good at, continue to build on, but find trends from around the league. You know, look at the top teams, see where they're at in certain areas. Why do they have success on a yearly basis? Maybe why do they have success in the playoffs? And we're going to have, you know, we're going to talk some different people that are going to present some things to us. As a staff, it was just the one thing, and it wasn't exactly mine in the sense of it, but I would like a little bit more togetherness as an organization. I think that we can share together, and like I said, the goal ultimately is to try to get some of this information to the players. But like I said, you got to be careful on how much is going out there. But yeah, no, we're looking together to get together as a group. We'll do it a little bit later on when things kind of settle after the draft. But hopefully that you know, we can have a real meaningful meaningful meetings that kind of push us forward.
Last couple of John.
Just like to piggyback on that thought, Scott. With you, Chevy, with respect to Is it an analytics department? I mean, like, what is the existing structure,
yeah.
and how is that going to evolve in this regard?
So we have an analytics department that we've had for for several years with various different people in it with different skill sets, from whether it's writing computer programs or the analysis. There's also some analytics people within the dressing room, I think, as well. And one thing we did a couple of years ago, and I can't remember, I think it was with Paul, and we had this sort of meeting. So this is what we kind of talked about, and it was right when we started to integrate a little bit more in a kind of a game-by-game package and stuff like that with respect to analytics. But I think obviously every coach is going to use it differently. Some coaches, want to take it more just internal and use it. Some coaches are, and Arnie and I have talked about it. He wants to, maybe be a little bit more open to, discussing the proper things, with the players or the different things. But it's getting the information that we have. And how he wants it, to be disseminated, and every coach has their own ways. But our analytics department, provides us, on the player personnel side, on the pro side, we've got our processes, that we've been honing for last 5-6 years, with them. I think with coaches and with new ideas or different ideas, there's always going to be changes. So it's just when Arnie says getting on the same page, it's making sure that all that information that we have harnessed behind the scenes, gets funneled into the coach's hands in the fashion and with the understanding of the coaches that they need.
And question for you, Scott. You mentioned coming full circle. I'm going to come full circle with this question and ask you, what type of coach do you want to be based on your experiences in Columbus and what you expressed as were shortcomings in your first time around as a bench boss?
Yeah, I don't think it's really all of a sudden becoming something different. I'm going to be me. I mean, it's hard to explain, but like I said, for the last 12 years, but the last 23 years of coaching, I've been trying to build my brand. I've been trying to build a style or, kind of a way to have success, both as a team, but also individually. But at the end of the day, it's having confidence in myself, knowing that, the biggest thing about those games that I got on the bench the last 2 years is I got belief back in myself. I really did. And that was the single biggest thing that happened, is that I've been sitting here for 12 years always wondering, am I ever going to get a second chance? And I'll tell you what, there's some great coaches in our league right now that got a second chance and a third chance who are having great success. And I like to think that I've learned a lot over these past few years that are going to help me move forward. Specifically, I don't have a whole lot right now to say to you. This is what I do, but I am a hard worker. I'm going to make sure I turn over every stone so that our players have individual success, that our team has success, that our coaches have a voice, that they help me, to make sure that, we're doing all the right things and then we're having success as a group. Thanks.
Okay, everybody. Like I said, if it's still necessary, both Chevy and Arnie would be available for scrums. We'll set up however you guys feel for a photo op after we're done here. And there's lunch, as you can see, served for everybody. So after we're done, you get an opportunity. Please feel free to grab a bite to eat from our friends at Sodexo. Formally, thank you everyone for coming once again, and we'll see you again probably close to the NHL draft. So thank you, everyone.
So where are we doing the picture?
I think